Revenge films.
This is a story from a couple years ago. Back then, I was living in an apartment building by myself. On the day of the incident, I had the day off of work, and for the first time in a while, I was able to relax and do nothing at home. I didn't even go outside, and I was messing around on my cell phone when suddenly the doorbell rang. When I looked at the security monitor, there was a man standing outside. But he wasn't wearing a uniform or anything, so I was wondering who it could be when the man said,
"Please, can I borrow your bathroom?"
I was a woman living by myself, and I wasn't such an idiot that I was going to let a strange man into my apartment, so I refused on the spot. However, then the man started yelling.
"So you're just gonna let me wet myself out here?"
But even if he said that, I knew there was no way I could let him into my house, so I answered him once again and then ignored him. But then, the man actually defecated right outside my door. Right at that moment, by coincidence, a man who lived on the same floor had come home, and he saw the man defecating and called the police. However, the man threw a tantrum, and then he tackled the man who was calling the police and ran away. The only thing left on the scene was a giant pile of poop and dirty underwear and pants, which means that the man ran away from the scene just like that. The man who called the police for me then called into my apartment and told me that if I opened the door, then I would end up touching the poop. So he told me that I shouldn't open the front door. He then went to go get the building manager in my place. He even helped to clean up the mess. But because of the norovirus had been going around lately, the building manager was extremely pissed off. He went to the police station and submitted a claim against this man. After that, it didn't take long for the man to be caught by the police, and I was relieved to hear that. Luckily, I wasn't directly damaged by the incident at all, so I was able to quickly go back to my regular life and was living peacefully. But then, one day, the defecating man showed up at my door once again. When he rang the doorbell and I looked at the security camera, I saw the man standing there, and I immediately thought about the pile of poop, and it made me feel sick. The man said that he wanted to apologize and asked me to please open the door. But what a joke! This wasn't something that could be solved with a simple apology. A grown man had defecated in a place like that. There's no way that I would want to face somebody with such poor manners, so I refused once again. But then, suddenly, he said,
"If you won't open up the door for me, then I'm gonna die right here!"
I was wondering how on earth he was going to die in a place like this. But then, to my disbelief, he actually jumped over the railing. However, underneath the building was a little garden, and I knew that just off the railing was a cushioned patch of soil. And that's why, even though I was on the second floor, I knew that it wasn't actually that dangerous unless he were to do something really outrageous. But given the previous incident as well, I don't think anything good was going to come out of it, so I was ignoring him. But then, a passerby saw the man on the ground and called an ambulance. According to what I heard, just as I expected, there was a cushion of soil where the man had jumped and fell, and he was only left with a few minor scratches. He didn't have any serious injuries whatsoever, but apparently, the man himself was yelling that he jumped off of the second floor and was hurt. When the passerby heard that, he panicked that a person had jumped off the second floor of an apartment building and rushed to call the ambulance for him. But of course, if somebody just walked by without knowing anything and heard that a person had jumped off of the second floor, anybody would panic and call the ambulance. Apparently, the defecating man was saying what a monster I was and how cold-hearted I could be to not even come check on him. But if I had opened up the door that day and I got roped into some kind of incident or something happened to me, I'm sure somebody would put the blame on me. I could already see people telling me that opening the door to a stranger when I was living alone was way too careless, and that people would blame me for any harm. And that's why, even though I was only trying to protect myself in that situation, I started to get scared that if I stayed in that apartment, that the defecating man might show up again. Especially because he was the type of person to defecate in front of my door and also jump over the railing off of the second floor. The previous time and this time, I just happened to be at home with the door locked. But if by any chance I would run into him on my way going to or coming back from work, that would be terrifying. So I decided to move as quickly as possible. For the record, I heard the defecating man was given a stern warning by the police. But of course, that was a given for him to go and do such things to a woman living by herself. And not only that, after causing me enough trouble as is, He came back once again and then actually jumped off of the railing and had the ambulance called. He was the definition of a public nuisance. But well, people like that are the type of people who can't understand when others try to explain things to them. So I thought that it would be best for me to not get involved at all and simply move. Immediately after that, I moved into a different apartment building in the same area. Not long after that was when I met my husband, and when we got married, he moved into my apartment, and we've been living there ever since. For a while after I started living with my husband, I didn't run into any dangerous incidents like that. My life was peaceful, and I was relieved and had let my guard down. However, unfortunately, that didn't last for long. One day when I was home alone, I heard him knock on my door. This time, an idiot man had the wrong apartment room number and came knocking on my door. I was taking a shower at the time, and because of the sound of the running water, it was obvious that I was home. That being said, it's not like I could answer the door immediately, so I was ignoring the ringing doorbell for a couple of minutes. But then, all of a sudden, the man started throwing a tantrum outside of my door, and he began hurling insults at me.
Hey, I know that you're in there. I can hear you. Hurry up and open up. I know that you can hear me in there. How dare you ignore me? You've got some nerve. Now open up.
I could hear him punching and kicking my door at full strength. I was starting to get quite scared when, right at that moment, I heard my husband's voice. It turns out that just as this man was throwing a rampage outside of my front door, my husband came home. And then, that man made the mistake of thinking that my husband was the man that his partner was cheating on him with, and started punching him out of nowhere. I wasn't going to go outside alone when there was a man throwing a tantrum outside of my door, but because I had heard my husband's voice, I went outside as fast as I could. But then, this man who had the wrong apartment was outside with my husband, and they both started telling me that if I had just answered the door in the first place, that none of this would have happened. When they said that, it really pissed me off. My husband was punched in the face, so he said that he was going to file a police report, but then this idiot man started saying that he was going to sue me. However, in the first place, I'd put my name on my bail box and my front door, so if the man had just looked at that, then he should have known immediately that it was very clearly somebody else's apartment. And so, because the man hadn't even bothered to check that, even though he tried to sue us, he was obviously denied. And instead, he was sued by my husband, who was able to collect a settlement fee from him. Not only that, but it turns out that the man was in the middle of having an extramarital affair, and the day that he came barging into our place, it was just as he was on his way to his mistress's place. When my husband called the police on him, of course the police had to contact the man's household, which meant that his wife was notified, and she found out about the affair. Take that, you idiot. After that, of course the wife wanted to divorce him. He was stuck having to pay a settlement fee in his divorce, and apparently he was going to try to sue me and then get a settlement fee out of me. But he showed up at my place out of nowhere, and he's the one that made the mistake himself, so all of it was clearly his fault. If anything, the fact that he thought that he could sue me was shocking. I mean, seriously, how stupid do you have to be to think that that would work? And so, in the end, the man that assaulted my husband was divorced by his wife, and he was stuck having to pay a settlement fee to both my husband and his ex-wife. But no matter how you look at the situation, he did this all to himself. As for my husband, because he was suddenly assaulted out of nowhere when he came home, he was irritated, and I was also pretty irritated by his response. But eventually we both let it go. However, when I spoke about that incident to my older sister, she looked at me with a serious face and said, "Your luck with men is way too terrible. You should go and cleanse your energies." And then, I heard from the first time from my big sister that when I was 2 years old, there was actually an incident that a high school student was playing a prank and kidnapped me. Because I was still 2 years old, I probably didn't understand fear, so I didn't have any trauma from that incident. But when I think about it now, it was disgusting. On top of that, my sister told me that there was once a time that my uncle came over to our house, and because he wasn't able to have kids of his own, he asked my parents to hand me over to him. At that time, my uncle showed my dad a large amount of money and said that he would buy me from my family for a high price. But then, my dad's eyes glimmered at the money, and he agreed, and my mom was furious. Apparently, she was yelling at her husband that something must be wrong with him to sell his child for money. But my dad seemed to think that there was no problem because I would still be remaining in the family. And then he told my uncle that if he wanted kids, then he'll make one for him if he could gather a little bit more money. That was when my mom lost it and divorced him. It was scary enough to me that a man I had never seen before had showed up at my door like that. But when I heard that I was about to be sold by my own father, the more I felt like I was cursed and I couldn't stand it. And that's why I went with my older sister to a temple and asked to be cleansed. I don't know if that actually worked, but I'm looking forward to my life ahead. Later on, when I was telling my colleague about it, she said, "Maybe you're being followed by the ghost of that curse?" But to be honest, a ghost sounded much more cute. Well, as someone with such bad luck with men, I was really fortunate I was able to meet my husband. But I can only pray that nothing else bad was going to happen.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.